All right, beautiful Cancer souls, gather close. Welcome back to Zodiac of Mind. I need you to take a deep breath and listen not just with your ears, but with that profound, deeply empathetic intuition that resides deep within your tender core. Because what I am about to share is not a prediction, nor is it a simple warning. It is a validation, a confirmation of a chilling truth that your spirit has been sensing for far too long. A shadow you felt but couldn't quite name. Someone, my dear Cancer, paid a price to shatter your peace and invade your sacred space, and I don't mean that as a metaphor. I'm talking about a deliberate, calculated act, an energetic contract put out on your emotional security, your inner sanctuary, and the very warmth of your light. It was funded by the dark currency of envy and malice, aimed at destabilizing the foundations of your heart. You may have thought you narrowly escaped certain emotionally draining situations by sheer luck or coincidence, but I'm here to tell you that luck had nothing to do with it. You were being fiercely divinely protected. Now is the time to pull back the veil, to expose the truth your soul has been whispering. And it all begins with a face you once trusted, a smile that concealed a betrayal meant for the very heart of your emotional world. Have you been feeling it? That invisible resistance, that sense that you're moving through energetic molasses, where every step forward requires a monumental effort, especially in your personal connections. Perhaps you've felt a strange chill when a certain name is mentioned, or a deep, unexplainable emotional exhaustion that has nothing to do with a lack of sleep. This is the echo of the attack. This is the residue of a battle that was waged in the unseen realms. A battle for your very sense of safety and well-being. If this is resonating with you, if that powerful gut of yours is churning with recognition right now, I want you to do two things for me. First, go to the comments right now and affirm your readiness by typing, "I am ready for the truth." Let's create a powerful wave of collective energy together. And second, if you haven't already, take a moment to subscribe to Zodiac of Mind and turn on notifications. You are on the precipice of a profound awakening, and I want to be right here with you, guiding you through every step of this incredible transformation. You are not alone in this. We are on this journey together. Let's be crystal clear about what happened here. When I say someone paid a price, I am speaking of a literal energetic exchange. This could have been money handed to someone who deals in the darker arts, favors traded to spread malicious whispers that undermined your home life or relationships, or a focused ritualistic curse intended to place insurmountable emotional obstacles in your path. They couldn't stand the sheer warmth and nurturing light you carry, Cancer. It's not because you did anything wrong. It's because your very presence, your unwavering commitment to creating a loving sanctuary, and your innate ability to sense emotional dishonesty forced them to confront the barren coldness within their own souls. You, my dear Cancer, are a living, breathing beacon of comfort and security. And for those who have built their lives on emotional pretense and cold calculation, that reflection is unbearable. So rather than looking at themselves and choosing to heal, they chose to try and shatter your haven. And here is the part that cuts the deepest. The part that your loyal, loving heart struggles to comprehend. This architect of your struggle is not some distant enemy or a stranger on the street. No, the wound is so profound because the person who orchestrated this is someone you once let into your inner sanctum, someone you shared your midnight vulnerabilities with, someone you nurtured when they were fragile, someone whose emotional secrets were safe with you. They didn't have to attack you directly. They were far more insidious than that. They knew your emotional pressure points. They knew your deepest fears about safety and abandonment, your secret hopes for a loving home and the people you cherished most. And they used that sacred knowledge as a roadmap, handing it over to someone else who could do the heavy lifting, someone who could carry out the energetic invasion they didn't have the courage to attempt themselves. They smiled to your face, all while outsourcing your emotional destruction. I know you've spent countless nights wrestling with the question, why me? You've replayed conversations searching for what you did wrong, how you could have been so mistaken. But you must understand, Cancer, you are trying to comprehend the unthinkable from a place of unconditional love and empathy. You cannot fathom how someone could take the pure gold of the trust you gave them and forge it into a weapon, because that kind of cold, corrosive envy is entirely alien to your nurturing nature. You know how to love fiercely, how to protect your own with the strength of a titan, and how to create a haven for those you care about. That is your code. Because of this, because of your pure heart, the betrayal felt like losing your anchor, a deep violation of your most sacred space. The deepest agony was never the attack itself. It was the chilling realization that you once opened your heart to the very person who handed your emotional map to the executioner. Your soul has known this all along. You don't need spreadsheets of evidence or sworn affidavits. You have seen the truth in vivid, unsettling dreams that no one else would believe. You have felt it in a wave of nausea when their name crossed your screen. And if you are hearing my voice right now, it is because the universe is saying, it's time. It is time to name it, not to cultivate hatred, but to finally, definitively release it. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't need to confront them or expose them. Your power lies in a much quieter, more profound action. All you need to do is place a hand over your heart, close your eyes, and whisper to your own soul, I have seen. I know, and I will not be broken. You may never get a confession, Cancer. They may never come to you riddled with guilt, begging for forgiveness. But you must understand that you no longer need their validation to heal. The most crucial part of your recovery, the truth, is something you have already possessed all along. And the truth is always enough to begin a new, more powerful journey. So right now, I want you to perform a small, sacred ritual. Take out a piece of paper and write down the first name that surfaced in your mind as I spoke of this silent betrayal. Write it down not to anchor yourself to hatred, but to give your soul a physical place to lay down the immense burden it has carried in silence for far too long. This act is a farewell to the version of you who once dimmed your own light to make others comfortable, who gave your trust too freely, who stayed silent when your intuition was screaming. From this moment forward, that person is gone. You are a soul awakened, a warrior of emotional light, and light no longer fears the dark. And then the next logical question arises in your brilliant, intuitive mind. If someone truly commissioned an energetic hitman, if they really went to such lengths, why are you still standing? Why didn't they succeed? The answer. Beautiful friend will arrive, not like a thunderclap, but like a steady, unyielding beam of sunlight cutting through a storm cloud. It has been quiet yet ever present. You cannot see it with your physical eyes, but you are perpetually shielded by a force of unimaginable power. Because every single time you've narrowly avoided an emotionally disastrous situation, every time you've abruptly canceled a plan for no logical reason, every time a lucky coincidence saved you from harm, that was never chance. I'm here to tell you about the one who has been standing between you and those invisible daggers, a celestial warrior who carries a sword of pure light and truth, a being who never ever lets a pure and powerful soul fall to the present machinations of darkness. That being is the Archangel Michael, and this is the moment you realize with every fiber of your being that you have never ever been alone. I want you to travel back in your memory for a moment, Cancer. Think of a time you were on the verge of a major decision, about to sign a contract, accept a job, enter a relationship, or attend a meeting. Everything was set, the path was clear, but in that final moment, something deep inside you clenched. A visceral, full-body no. There was no logical reason for it, just a powerful, gut-level feeling, a whisper from your soul saying, do not go, and you listened. That day probably passed without fanfare. No alarms went off. No one called to thank you for avoiding a catastrophe you never even knew was waiting for you. But that, my dear Cancer, was very likely the moment you were saved. You may have credited it to your sharp intuition, and you weren't wrong. But perhaps it was more than that. Perhaps it was a divine whisper, amplified through your intuition, a celestial protector working through the very energetic channels you are so naturally attuned to. In Eastern philosophies, they are known as dharmapalas. wrathful deities who serve as fierce protectors of the truth. In the angelic realm, there is no fiercer protector than Archangel Michael, the one who wields the cobalt blue sword of light, the one who stands eternally between the shadows and those who live by the truth of their hearts. I believe you have met Michael countless times, not with your eyes, but through that undeniable sense of energetic intervention. Perhaps you were about to open an emotional door that led to chaos, but someone held your hand back in the unseen realm. Perhaps you typed out an angry, revealing message to someone, but your heart suddenly ached with a strange sadness. You deleted it, and a chain of devastating emotional consequences was averted before it ever began. You have been intervened for Cancer not once, but many times. The protection wasn't in grand theatrical miracles. It was in the silent, subtle, and powerful shifts. It was in the sudden urge to take a different route home. It was in the technology that glitched right before you could send a compromising email. It was in the friend who canceled plans, leaving you feeling rejected, only for you to find out later that you avoided a toxic and dangerous emotional environment. I once worked with a Cancer woman, a brilliant therapist who was about to take on a new client who was referred by a trusted colleague. On paper, this client seemed like an excellent fit. But every time she was about to schedule the first session, something bizarre would happen. Her computer would crash, her phone would die, or a strange illness would overcome her. At first, she cursed her bad luck, but after the third coincidence, her Cancer intuition kicked in. She politely declined the client and later found out the individual was a master manipulator who had a history of severely destabilizing therapists' personal lives. She learned to listen, not just to the referral, but to the divine disruptions. Cancer, you have a direct line to the unseen, an unbreakable connection to your spiritual guardians. But because your nurturing mind is so focused on others, you sometimes try to reason away these sacred signals. Please stop doing that. Every time you meet someone and feel an energetic drain that is your soul screaming a warning about an emotional vampire. Every time you are about to move forward and suddenly feel a profound sense of emptiness that is Archangel Michael saying, "This is not the way." The rejections you once lamented, the loneliness you cried over, the times you felt abandoned. None of these were punishments. They were the most sacred, loving acts of divine protection. Have you ever considered that what has kept you whole all this time was not just your own incredible resilience, but a celestial bodyguard shielding you from the blows you couldn't see coming? If that is true, then you are no longer a lone caregiver fighting in the dark. You have an army of light at your back. You have been, you are, and you will always be protected as long as you remain aligned with the truth in your heart. I don't need you to believe this with your mind right away. I just need you to get still and allow your soul to remember. Recall the times you escaped, not knowing why. The moments you changed your mind at the last second and later felt a wave of profound gratitude. The instances where your intuition was so chillingly accurate, it sent shivers down your spine. I want you to write these moments down in a journal. This is not for anyone else. This is your personal book of evidence. A reminder that you don't need to see with your eyes to trust that light walks with you. You don't need to pray in a specific way or use a specific name. As long as you keep truth as your compass, Archangel Michael will be there. In a dream, in a flash of insight, in a fleeting feeling that later proves so precise, it shakes you to your core. So please, Cancer, do not dismiss the strange and powerful sensations within you. Your soul is an ancient receiver, one that tunes into the frequency of truth through silence. And sometimes the one who protects you doesn't come to speak, but to physically hold you back at the very moment you need it most. And that is precisely why, no matter how many times they paid to see you fall, you rose again more powerful than before. Not because you knew how to fight back in their dirty game, but because someone else was taking the arrows for you. Yet, not every arrow flies straight. Some are passed through an intermediary, a person who exists in the gray spaces, someone who is neither for you nor overtly against you. This is the person who smiles at both sides, the perpetual neutral party, and it is their so-called neutrality, their refusal to choose a side, that has inflicted one of the deepest wounds. Because in your quest to uncover the truth, there is another face you must confront, not the mastermind, and not your celestial savior, but the one who carelessly opened the door and allowed the darkness to seep into your emotional life. And the most tragic part, they may not have even realized they were holding the key. You see, in the sacred stories of our most profound wounds, the villain isn't always the one who declares their hatred openly. Sometimes the most damaging person is the one in the middle, the ambiguous one, the one you believed was a safe harbor only to discover they were the very gate through which the enemy quietly slipped. This cancer is the hardest pill to swallow, not because the betrayal is so dramatic, but because it is so painfully close. So close that you've told yourself, no, it couldn't be them. So close that you felt a pang of guilt for even daring to doubt their loyalty. This could be a friend, a family member, even an ex-partner with whom you thought you had a peaceful relationship. It was someone who once held your hand while you cried, someone who heard you speak your most vulnerable truths, someone who made you believe, no matter what, they would never hurt me. And yet that very person became the unwitting or perhaps willfully blind conduit. They became the bridge between your sacred private world and those who sought to harm you. They didn't need to slander you. They only needed to share a small story told under the guise of concern, an insignificant detail dropped in the wrong company, a vulnerability you once entrusted to them shared with others, and the darkness like a toxic gas seeping through. A crack under the door slipped silently inside. Now, not all of these people are inherently cruel. Some are just weak. They may have never consciously intended to cause you harm, but they lack the spiritual fortitude and integrity to safeguard the emotional trust you placed in their hands. And in the critical moments when you needed an ally, when you needed a defender of your emotional space, they chose the path of least resistance: silence. Silence when they heard others speaking of you with heavy toxic energy. Silence when they witnessed something unjust unfolding. Silence when all it would have taken was a simple stop. That's not right. Cancer, this betrayal didn't come with a bang, but with a deafening silence. And you, with your deep capacity to understand the complexities of human nature, have probably made 1,000 excuses for them. They didn't mean it. Maybe they were scared. Perhaps I'm just being too intense, too sensitive. But I am here to tell you to stop. There are actions that require no further analysis, and there are souls who, even without malicious intent, must bear the responsibility for passing a loaded gun into the wrong hands. I received a letter from a woman in America, a Cancer, just like you. She wrote, "I told my oldest friend about a deep emotional fear I had, something I had never spoken of to anyone. I trusted her, completely believed she would nurture my vulnerability. A few weeks later, a new acquaintance made a veiled comment that used my exact unique wording. He was trying to energetically manipulate me, using my deepest fear as leverage. The only way he could have known was through my friend." Her heart shattered, not because she lost a friend, but because she lost a place she believed was safe, a sanctuary that had been violated. Cancer. Have you ever had a place like that? A person you thought you could lean on only to find they were the first to step away when you needed them most? I know you resist calling it betrayal. You want to preserve a gentle memory of those who were once important. But true forgiveness does not require you to blur the truth. In fact, true forgiveness often demands that you look squarely at what happened without flinching, so that you can finally truly walk away. You don't need to have a loud confrontation. All you need is a new boundary forged from steel-like awareness, not from the fragile material of your wound. Starting today, let your heart choose again. Not everyone who was with you in the beginning deserves a seat at the table in your magnificent future. Setting a boundary isn't an act of coldness. For a Cancer, it is one of the most profound acts of self-love and self-protection. Write their name down, and then gently symbolically take your key back from their hands. Your light no longer has room for half-hearted allies. It's time for your soul to decide who is truly worthy of staying. This process isn't easy, but every single time you step away from an ambiguous, draining connection, you are protecting yourself from a future wound. And as you begin to choose your circle from this new place of enlightened awareness, a quiet miracle begins to unfold. You won't have to force it or go looking for it. new light will find you. New people will enter your life. People who are not intimidated by your power. People who don't want to manipulate you, but who want to walk beside you with honesty, integrity, and wholeness. Because even if you've been pushed out of your old circles, a new kingdom is opening up before you. A place where you no longer have to perform or shrink yourself to be accepted. And it is from this new vantage point that you will see with perfect clarity what the ones who hurt you are now quietly beginning to face. There are some battles, my dear Cancer, you don't need to fight. You don't need to retaliate. You don't need to expose. You don't need to prove how deeply you were wounded. The universe, with its perfect immutable laws, always remembers. The soul keeps its own ledger, and the law of karma never ever forgets an address. You may have looked at their life from a distance and thought, they got away with it. They're happy, successful, surrounded by friends. But you are only seeing the carefully curated surface. The truth is, what they hide is not for public consumption, but they are living with the energetic consequences every single day. The one who betrayed you, the one who chose silence, the one who opened the door for the darkness is now beginning to reap what they have sown, and no one needs to punish them. The deafening silence of the light you have withdrawn is enough to send their own darkness into a chaotic spiral. Do you remember those sleepless nights, Cancer? The nights you were tormented by an emotional pain no one could see? They are beginning to have nights just like that. Do you remember the feeling of being isolated, misunderstood, and energetically targeted? They are now beginning to touch layers of a profound loneliness they cannot name or articulate. This is not because you wished it upon them. Your energy is far too valuable to be wasted on revenge. It is happening because that is the elegant, precise, and inescapable nature of the universe. And the most beautiful miracle in all of this is that you don't have to look back. You no longer need to wonder if they regret it. You no longer have to wait for an apology that will never come. Because what matters is no longer their story, it is yours. It is the fact that you are still here, more whole and more powerful than ever. It is the fact that the brilliant, intense light within you could never ever be extinguished. It is the fact that you chose not to let their darkness define the person you would become. Your soul, magnificent Cancer, did not come to this earth to engage in petty revenge. You came here for alchemy. You came here to be reborn from the ashes of what once seemed impossible to heal. You came here to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that a heart that has been betrayed can still love with ferocious passion, that a soul that has been deceived can still discern the truth with unshakable clarity, and that a light that was once despised by the darkness can still shine brighter than ever without asking for anyone's permission. They tried to silence you. They tried to make you doubt your own sanity, your own power. But now that very power has become your salvation. The intensity they mistook for clinginess has become your unshakable strength. The silence you once endured has become the fertile ground for the greatest spiritual awakening of your life. Take a deep cleansing breath, Cancer. Feel that. Does your chest feel lighter? Does your jaw feel less clenched? Does your heart no longer feel like it needs to be braced for impact? If the answer is yes, then you are exactly where you are meant to be. You are no longer who you were. You no longer need the validation of those who excluded you. You have accepted yourself first, and that is the only acceptance that has ever mattered. They may be facing their fall, but you, my friend, are in the midst of your glorious rise. Not to be higher than them, but to be higher than the version of yourself who once bowed your head in fear. I know you are still tender in places. That is not a weakness for a Cancer. Your tenderness is the sacred portal through which your power flows. It is proof that you can still feel, still trust, still love with the depth of the entire ocean. And so I want you to perform one final act. Write this down for yourself. Let no one else see it unless you choose. Exhale all the old air from your lungs and write these words: I have seen the truth. I forgive what was, and I reclaim my emotional sanctuary and power, now and forever. Write it like a sacred decree. Write it like a passport out of the prison of a memory that no longer belongs in your soul. Write it like a final sovereign farewell to those who hurt you, because they no longer hold any power over the kingdom of your heart. Write it and then step forward into your future. No looking back, no regrets. Because what is coming for you is a life of authentic power, a light no longer hidden, and an entirely new chapter written by you with a voice that no longer trembles and a heart that no longer needs permission to be the magnificent, nurturing, and brilliant force of nature that it truly is. Thank you, my beautiful Cancer, for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for not allowing pain to make you bitter. Thank you for choosing the light even when you were surrounded by darkness. I wish for your coming days to be as powerful as a silent river, as rooted as a timeless mountain, and as full as a heart that has finally laid down a burden it was never meant to carry. May it be that anyone who comes to you now will not require you to sacrifice your power to be loved, but will love you because of it. Thank you, Cancer. You are never alone. The universe has seen it all, and your light is shining bright once more.